His breath brushed against my neck, a whisper of warmth preceding the touch of his hands. We found ourselves in the basement, not in a shadowy, incomplete area, but in a cozy den adorned with beige carpeting, wooden shelves, and a couch that had a slight sag in the center. My husband lay upstairs, peacefully dozing on the recliner, while the TV softly murmured in the background. After our dinner party, I descended to stow away the board games. Yet, I found myself in the company of others. He trailed behind me down the stairs, silent as a shadow. I ought to have instructed him to go. I did not. He moved in behind me, so near that I could sense the heat radiating from his chest. I stood beside the built-in cabinets as he began to speak. "Are you certain you want me to cease?" My lips parted, yet silence enveloped me. His fingers lightly grazed my lower back, a fleeting touch. He then placed his palm upon that spot. I found myself leaning forward, an instinctive response rather than a deliberate action. That was the only approval he required. He drew me closer, his hands slipping beneath my sweater, gliding over the skin just above my waistband. My breath was taken away. His lips grazed the delicate skin just behind my ear, and I could feel the tremors begin in my knees. He softly turned me and led me to the couch. The cushions sank beneath our presence. He took his time. Each movement was intentional, measured, as if he sought only what I was willing to offer. Yet, I offered. His hands slid my leggings down. My hands clutched the couch cushions, fingers entwined in the fabric, as if I required something to anchor me, or perhaps to keep me whole. He made his way inside me with a deliberate slowness. It crept upon me, leaving me breathless. It was not difficult. It was not chaotic. It was even more dire than that. It was deliberate. His rhythm was unwavering, profoundly controlled, and with each movement, it became increasingly difficult to deny the reality of the moment. My hips curved invitingly in his direction. My breath fractured into irregular gasps. I breathed his name softly, not from love, but because the urge to speak it had become too strong to contain. His hand found its way beneath my thigh, drawing me nearer. His other arm rested firmly against the back of the couch, creating a barrier that enclosed me. I raised my gaze and observed the ceiling fan whirling quietly overhead. In that instant, the realization struck me that we were truly embarking on this journey, within the confines of my home. With my partner upstairs, I tightened my jaw, stifling the sound that almost broke free from my throat. He pressed deeper, and my body surrendered every promise I had ever sworn. I believed I had a clear understanding of my limits. Until he moved beyond them. I am 39 years old. I have been in a marriage for nearly 12 years. I fulfill all my obligations, shopping for groceries, gratitude notes, celebrating birthday dinners for my in-laws. I encourage my daughter to always embrace honesty, even in challenging moments. Yet, I have not truly embraced my own for years. He is a friend of my husband, the individual who assisted in the installation of our new kitchen lights, the individual who consistently lingered just a bit longer once the rest had departed, the person who noticed me in my unguarded moments, hair tied back, no makeup, caught in the midst of folding towels. I'm uncertain about when it all began. I simply recognize that I didn't prevent it. What actions would you take if the individual you were meant to safeguard became the one you secretly yearned for? That is precisely what transpired. I allowed it to unfold. What compounds the situation is that it was no mere accident. It wasn't a spur-of-the-moment decision or influenced by the effects of alcohol. It moved at a more leisurely pace. It was more profound. It overwhelmed me. I felt no regret about it. Not at that time. Not when he pressed his lips to my shoulder. After it had ended. Not when he fastened his pants and admitted he shouldn't have come down. Not when I lingered on that couch for a whole minute after he departed, quaking not from trepidation, nor from revulsion, but from that dormant essence within me that had just stirred after an eternity of slumber. For some, breaking the rules is a deliberate choice, not a mere accident. We stride boldly into the flames. If you've ever embarked on a journey, fully aware of the price it would demand, this tale is meant for you. Show your support and hit that subscribe button. We aren't as unique as we like to believe. I once identified as a person who adhered to the guidelines, awoke at 6, brewed coffee, prepared lunches, and promptly replied to the school email list. I could balance work calls with one hand while stirring pasta with the other. I recalled each and every visit to the dentist, each educator's conference, each grocery item that my husband neglected to jot down. That was the essence of my existence. Neat, unsurprising, reliable. Yet, beneath the surface of the everyday, Something else was taking shape. Silence, unhurried. It felt like a craving I couldn't quite identify. He goes by the name Daniel. 43. Divorced. 2 boys from a prior marriage who come to visit every other weekend. My husband encountered him at a barbecue hosted by a mutual friend 6 months back, where they connected over their shared interests in craft beer and lawn care tools. Following that, Daniel began to visit more frequently. Projects for the weekend. Matches of football, assisting us in enhancing the home. He proved to be quite beneficial. Warm and approachable, comfortably known to evoke a sense of security. Yet, I sensed it, even at that moment, the way his gaze lingered just a heartbeat longer than necessary. His compliments had an unsettling precision. It was as if his kindness had an ulterior motive. He was observing. It began with a whisper, a glance over the table during an evening gathering, a fleeting instant when our fingertips grazed as we exchanged a dish, a chuckle that stretched on, following my silly quip about my inability to nurture a houseplant. I truly sensed it. Not only his focus but also my reaction to it. I remained steadfast. I desired it. For at home, everything had become level. My husband was not unkind. He didn't seem distant in any noticeable manner. Yet he was, in another place, perpetually fatigued. Perpetually engaged in tasks. Perpetually on the brink of the next endeavor. I would settle onto the couch beside him, yet he remained completely absorbed in his laptop, not sparing a single glance in my direction. At times, I would inquire about his day, and he would merely grunt and reach for the divine. I struggled to recall the last moment he had reached out to me simply for the sake of closeness. Not from routine or duty, but because it was his desire. My body had merged with the surroundings. It wasn't until Daniel brought it to my attention that I realized it remained present. I began discovering excuses to be close to him. I would enter the garage while he and my husband were busy assembling the shelves. Provide beverages. Act as if you require assistance with something that is not heavy. As he approached to steady me while I was on the stepstool, his hand brushed against my hip. We were both paralyzed in that moment. Yet, neither of us offered an apology. A week later, he arrived by himself to return a charger he claimed he had forgotten. My husband was at his job. I welcomed Daniel inside. We gathered at the kitchen counter. Nothing occurred. Yet, all things changed. The atmosphere surrounding us was thick with unspoken tension. Strained, I inquired whether he would like some coffee. He agreed. I remained still, not making a move to retrieve it. We simply locked eyes for a moment that lingered just a bit too long. Are you all right? He inquired. I'm uncertain. I spoke with too much candor. He gave a slight nod, as if he had known all along. From that moment forward, the weight of guilt began to settle in. Prior to any physical occurrences, each look seemed to cut deep, a silent act of treachery. Each passing thought grew increasingly difficult to dismiss. I found myself gazing at my reflection in the bathroom mirror once he had gone, curious about what he truly perceived in me. I began to recognize certain aspects within myself. At that moment, I realized I was facing a predicament. It wasn't the slipping that troubled me the most. The sensation of being truly alive in that moment was undeniable. I made an effort to break free from it. I arranged special evenings out with my husband. I started discussions. I reminded myself to regain my focus. Yet, none of it lingered. I found myself moving through actions that seemed devoid of any real connection. Then Daniel began to send messages. Rarely, always straightforward. Consistently laid back. Yet it carries an undercurrent that evokes a sense of peril. Your pasta surpassed that restaurant's offerings. Your expression when you aced that drill was priceless. Whenever your husband struggles with programming that thermostat, feel free to reach out to me. I would respond with cheerful smiley faces. Single-word responses. Brief responses that left the conversation open. Thus, the door remained ajar. Up until the evening of the dinner gathering. The moment when the rest departed ahead of time. In the recliner where my husband drifted off to sleep, I descended the stairs to organize things. And Daniel followed as if it were the most natural thing in the world, as if it had already been grasped. Now, every time I gaze at that basement, I am reminded of the heaviness of his presence. The allure of it. The way he made me feel as though I hadn't experienced a touch in ages, and how utterly chilling it was to come to the realization that this could indeed be the case. Each day since that moment, I've been acting as if everything remains the same. Neatly arranging freshly laundered clothes. Preparing lunches. Brewing a cup of coffee. Yet, I sense a distinction within myself. And I understand, even if no one else does, that I've crossed a boundary I cannot return from. Yet here I remain, positioned on the opposite side of it all. The most challenging aspect of crossing a boundary is the surprising ease with which one can remain in that place. Daniel avoided mentioning the events of that night, at least not in a straightforward manner. However, when he returned, his gaze upon me had shifted. I don't feel like eating. Not arrogant, simply, understanding. It felt as though we were harboring a secret that had already etched itself into our very being. He made a visit on a Tuesday. He mentioned that he had an extra filter for our water system, the one that my husband continually overlooked replacing. I was in the laundry room, folding towels, when a knock echoed from the back door. I didn't even inquire about why he approached from that direction. He lingered there, the filter grasped in his hand, a half-smile playing on his lips as he probed the limits I had set. The type that acted without seeking approval, confident that I would not refuse. Our conversation was minimal. He presented the box to me, our fingers grazed once more, igniting that ultra-familiar spark of warmth that lingered just at the edge of recollection. "Are you all right?" he inquired. He had posed that question to me for the third time. "No," I expressed more honesty than was perhaps necessary. "However, I've grown accustomed to it." He seemed poised to take a step nearer, yet he chose not to. He departed, without a fight, and I loathed him for that, for the simple reason that I desired it, because I lacked the confidence to resist drawing him closer if he chose to approach. That night, slumber eluded me. I reclined beside my husband, my gaze fixed on the ceiling, the stillness enveloping us more resonant than any unspoken disagreement. I felt the urge to rouse him from his slumber. I felt compelled to ask him to meet me once more, to reach out to me to evoke a sense of being more than just a date he had already committed to memory. However, I did not. I turned over, glanced at my phone, and noticed a message from Daniel. "I didn't intend to surprise you today." I chose not to reply. However, I went through it 7 times. Several days passed, and it was finally Daniel's opportunity to welcome the group for their poker night. My husband inquired if I would assist in delivering a few chairs. We arrived at approximately 6 o'clock. I brought in a tray filled with an assortment of snacks. Daniel welcomed me at the door as if everything remained unchanged. Yet, as our hands collided over the bowl of chips, his thumb grazed mine ever so gently, and I nearly let the whole thing slip from my grasp. Eventually, I made my way inside to use the restroom. As I swung the door open, I found Daniel standing in the hallway. We stood still, caught in the moment. "I apologize for my hasty remark. I wasn't aware you were. You're doing well." Yet, we remained still. The atmosphere grew dense around us. The hallway was a slender passage, its walls adorned in a deep shade of blue, illuminated solely by the gentle glow of a lamp from the adjacent guest room. He was near, not quite making contact, yet close enough for me to sense the spark between us reignite. "What prompted you to follow me that night?" I inquired softly. He gulped, casting his gaze downward. "Since you didn't advise me against it, I remained silent." "Should I cease my visits?" he inquired. I gazed at him intently, and it dawned on me that he was sincere, neither a challenge nor a threat. As an outsider, "I have no idea," I replied. He nodded as if that was the response he anticipated. He moved aside to allow me to go by. I passed him, my heart racing so fiercely that I was convinced he could hear it. That evening, I lingered in the shadows, biding my time until my husband succumbed to slumber. And then I settled quietly on the stairs, just sat there, hoping the shadows might unravel the tangled knots within me. I repeatedly reassured myself that I was in command, that nothing had changed since that initial moment, and as long as I refrained from repeating my past actions, I was somehow improved, elevated beyond my previous mistakes. Yet, it was nothing but a fabrication. The constant glances at my phone, the way I held my breath in the stillness of the house, the relentless replay of Daniel's voice asking, "Do you want me to stop coming around?" That was undeniably significant. A week later, my husband found himself on a late work call. I found myself lounging on the couch, aimlessly flipping through channels, yet not truly engaging with anything on the screen. Daniel sent a message. "I'm cruising by your street." Simply that. No inquiry, no request. Yet, I responded to it regardless. "The living room is shrouded in darkness." He arrived, He found a spot to park a little further down the street. I observed from behind the curtain as he made his way to the side door. Silence. Proceed with caution. This time, we found ourselves seated in the kitchen, facing one another. Keep your hands to yourself. Simply inhale, feel the closeness, and acknowledge that every aspect of this was fundamentally flawed. I arrived here without any intention based on his words. I understand. However, I had the desire to. I wished for you to. It marked the inaugural moment for both of us to voice it aloud, and in some way, voicing it seemed more perilous than everything we had already experienced. He was the first to rise. He mentioned that it would be best for him to leave. I gave a slight nod. I allowed him to continue. However, I also didn't see him out. I lingered at the table, my fingertips resting on the wood, absorbing the warmth left behind by his hands. And that was the moment I understood this had transcended mere temptation. This was a deep yearning, profound, odd, everyday, perilous. We still hadn't made contact again, yet in every significant aspect, we have already done that. It occurred on a Sunday. Dusk approaches, immediately following the rainfall. The sky remained a dull gray dot. Our daughter attended a sleepover. My husband decided to make a last-minute trip to see his brother. A slight emergency has arisen. A sudden rupture in the plumbing, or something similar. I mentioned that I would remain behind to make progress on the laundry. He pressed his lips to my cheek and spoke softly. Don't stay up for me. I did not. Before I even registered my actions, I found myself texting Daniel. Do you still have my drill? He responded after a brief interval of 10 minutes. I'll arrive in 15 minutes. I lingered in the garage, feigning an interest in the disarray of storage bins as I awaited his arrival. The sensation tingled in my fingertips. That light, fluttering anxiety that arises just before the plunge. He arrived clad in a gray hoodie and jeans, his hair still damp from the rain. He lacked the drill. I did not inquire. He entered and closed the garage door behind him. For a fleeting moment, we simply remained still. We found ourselves amidst a sea of holiday boxes, paint cans, and the unmistakable scent of damp concrete. Let this be the final time, I implored. I won't deceive you, he murmured softly. He approached me with measured steps. Unhurried, deliberate. I stood my ground. His hand brushed against my waist, the warmth seeping through the fabric of my shirt. I gazed up at him and noticed the pain etched on his features. Not desire, pain, the sort that acknowledges the wrongness, yet yearns for it all the same. He pressed his lips against mine. Gentle. Proceed with caution, then again, further into the depths. Before I even registered what was happening, my fingers found their way into his hair. His breath caught as I eased my leg between his. The hoodie was removed. His skin radiated warmth, carrying a subtle scent of sweat intertwined with the freshness of clean laundry and hints of cedar. He lifted me effortlessly, as if I were weightless, and I encircled his waist with my legs. The chill of the garage wall pressed against my back. His lips brushed against my neck. A chill ran through me. I murmured, "This isn't something we should be doing. I understand." Yet his body melded with mine in a slow, intentional cadence that caused the world around us to fade into oblivion. My head tilted backward. I clutched his shoulders tightly. Every part of me coiled around the sense of wrongness and refused to release its grip. He entered me with a deliberate grace. Not as if he desired to take me, but rather as if he longed to hold me. Each thrust became more deliberate, more profound, calculated. He gazed into my eyes when I was unable to confront my own heart. My heel collided with the storage rack. A box teetered, yet remained upright. I pressed my face into his shoulder, stifling the sound that slipped from my throat. It was not difficult. It was not hurried. It was utterly heartbreaking, because it seemed to be something greater. Beyond mere secrecy, beyond a mere error. It seemed to be a door that remained forever, ajar. He remained still for a moment after it ended. He pressed me against the wall, his breath coming in quick, heavy gasps, his forehead pressed against mine, as if we were both terrified of what we had just done. My legs trembled long after he finally released me. I extended my hand toward my undergarments. I lifted it gradually, attempting to conceal the extent of my trembling hands. He observed me closely. Quiet. This alters everything I previously stated. It has already occurred, he responded. I gave a slight nod. Tears threatened to spill over. However, I did not. He assisted me in restoring the boxes to their proper positions, the ones I had feigned to arrange. He pressed his lips against mine once more. Not as a man filled with pride, but rather as one uncertain of when he might have the chance to reach for me again. After that, he departed. Enter via the side gate. Silently, I lingered at the closed garage door. The lights faded, leaving the body humming with the echoes of recent events. The rain began anew, soft and soothing, as if it were cleansing the exterior of the home, leaving the interior untouched by its purifying touch. I indulged in a lengthy shower, the water scorching against my skin. My skin flushed a vibrant pink, yet it refused to wash away the weight of remorse, the desire, the mere act of my opening the door. Once more, this time, it was intentional. It was neither heat nor confusion, nor a mere slip, it was a decision. And I accomplished it with full awareness. That night, sleep eluded me. I reclined in bed next to my husband, my skin still glistening from the shower. Skin feels tender, every nerve alive beneath the sheets. He was snoring softly, his hand resting across his stomach, as if he were completely at ease, as if every aspect of his life was firmly grounded. Daniel's face lingered in my mind, an image I couldn't shake off. It wasn't the way he gazed at me when our lips met. His gaze lingered on me, as if he had words trapped within him, unsure whether he had the permission to release them. The next morning, I rose early and found myself seated on the bathroom floor, my coffee bag pressed against the cabinet, my gaze fixed on a single spot on the tile, lost in thought for what seemed like an eternity. The moment played over and over in my mind, echoing against the garage wall. His hand traced a path to the nape of my neck. The whisper of his breath as he spoke my name. My body responded to him instinctively, before my mind could even raise an objection. I promised myself that I would never lay eyes on him again. We had once more crossed the line, and now it was time for it to come to an end. I made a vow to myself that it had come to an end. Yet I found it hard to accept, and even more troubling, I wished it were not the case. 3 days have elapsed. I steered clear of the garage. As I moved through it, a tension gripped my thighs, and his voice reverberated in my mind. I meticulously folded the laundry, pouring all my attention into the task. I arranged the fridge as if it held the key to my salvation. I meticulously sifted through my daughter's school forms 3 times, finding solace in the repetitive task to occupy my hands. Once more, I laid eyes on him. Daniel made a brief appearance during dinner, just outside, a fleeting visit. My husband had extended an invitation for him to come and examine something along the fence line. I received no prior warning whatsoever. Clad in my apron, my hands bore the remnants of barbecue sauce, still sticky and fragrant. I swung the door wide, and there he stood. It struck me with such force that I almost gasped for air. Initially, we remained silent, our gazes intertwining for a moment that lingered just a bit too long. My heart raced in my throat, and I couldn't help but wonder if he could hear it pounding. "Hey," he murmured gently. "Greetings," I have responded. He entered to extend his greetings to my husband. As they brushed by, the air around me seemed to ripple with their presence. His shoulder grazed against mine just enough to send my stomach plummeting. The evening unfolded like any other, filled with laughter, drinks, and engaging dialogue. Yet, I found myself coming apart quietly as they ventured outside to inspect the fence. I remained at the sink, scrubbing dishes that hardly required cleaning. I could hear their laughter drifting in from outside. I overheard my husband mention something regarding reliable assistance and trustworthiness. The word struck me with the force of a slap. Faith. As the evening unfolded, I found myself perched on the couch, the sound of water cascading from the shower where my husband was cleansing himself filling the air. I unlocked my phone and gazed at the final message from Daniel, lingering in the unread state. "I regret having touched you in that way. Yet, I cannot feign ignorance of the emotions that stirred within me." I did not reply. I ought to have removed it. I wrote that it wasn't solely your fault. After that, I wiped it away. Subsequently, I retyped it. I gazed at it for a solid minute before finally pressing send. He took his time to respond. The silence was almost unbearable, pushing me to the brink of madness. The following morning, I awoke to a message. "So, what happens next?" I remained silent. I was unable to. I was unaware. I felt as though I was tiptoeing through my own home, unsure of how to exist there without the sense of stealth. I found myself pouring my husband's coffee, a nagging thought lingering. Did he sense the betrayal woven into my every movement? As the day progressed, I strolled down the hallway and caught sight of my reflection in the mirror. I appeared quite well, groomed with care. Garments are spotless, serene expression. Yet within, all was shattering. And the most difficult aspect, the one I couldn't articulate, was that I didn't perceive myself as a victim of circumstance. I sensed my own involvement. I found myself returning time and again. Perhaps not with my body. This week is not suitable, yet within the confines of my mind. In every daydream that swept over me when the house fell silent, I found myself continually wishing he would be the one to reach out to me first. Once more, I laid eyes on Daniel. We happened to be at the store, together, quite by chance. I found myself purchasing detergent. He stood in front of me in line. He cast a glance behind him, witnessed me, and did not look away. Silence enveloped us, yet his eyes conveyed everything. That night, I shattered. I nestled into the laundry room floor, that solitary corner of the house where I'm never disturbed, and allowed myself to unravel. Silent tears fell from my eyes, hands clenched against my lips, shivers coursing through the body. Not solely from a sense of guilt, born from sorrow. Due to my longing for him, because I desired him, because I was completely at a loss on how to return to a state of innocence. I'm uncertain about whether I want to quit. Or if I simply wish to cease the self-loathing for not doing so. The subsequent near miss was a minor occurrence, yet, it is often the little things that ultimately lead to your downfall. On a Tuesday evening, silence. My daughter was engrossed in a book upstairs. My husband was on the patio, pacing as he took a call, just like he always did when work became intense. As I scrubbed the counter with an intensity that felt almost excessive, a gentle knock echoed from the back door, breaking the silence of the kitchen. I was already aware. Daniel remained in place, hoodie drawn over the head, with his hands tucked away in his pockets. I opened the door but remained still, not stepping aside. "You shouldn't be here," I whispered. "I understand. So, what's the reason behind that?" I didn't believe it would cause any pain to simply catch a glimpse of you. He expressed it in a way that enhanced its impact. Seeing me wouldn't lead to a cascade of other issues. He made no attempt to enter. He made no move to reach for me. He lingered on the back steps beneath the porch light, resembling a man who had forgotten the art of untying any knots in his life. "Do you feel remorse about it?" he inquired. I parted my lips, sealed it shut. My throat felt constricted. At times, I found myself speaking up, though not for the right reasons. He nodded, as if that caused him pain. "In that case, I shall take my leave." He pivoted. That ought to have been the end of it. However, the door behind me swung open, revealing the other door. My husband entered the kitchen, earbuds still in place, searching for something. He hesitated as he caught sight of me by the back door, the light illuminating the silhouette of someone making their way down our driveway. "Who was that?" he inquired. A chill coursed through my veins. My voice faltered. Simply, Daniel, I spoke. "He forgot something here last week." I averted my gaze from his face as I spoke those words. I continued to wipe the counter, even though it was already spotless. He refrained from pushing. I didn't inquire further. Yet an unmistakable shift lingered in the atmosphere following that moment. He began to regard me in a new light. Not with doubt, it deteriorates with distance.